Morning, everyone. We will be having our ABR class this morning for 3 hours, tomorrow for 3 hours, and we'll repeat that again next Monday and Tuesday as well. A total of about 12 hours. And this is ABR class, which is accredited buyer's representative. And I truly believe this is probably one of the most beneficial class to you. I even think when we have taught ABR and CVEA for Cambodia in the past, but I truly believe this might be even going to help your business locally as well. If we're not speaking, please let's say you read it. I see some of you are in it. Let's hearing that feedback from the book, so make them review it. Okay? All right? Okay, I think all the feedbacks are wrong. So, and I'll go through, and also hopefully you have your materials that was passed out to you already, and I'll explain that to you how you could use your student manual as well, and how that goes along with the slide. And then when we have a question, we do not use a chat room. They just stop me and say, "Hey, Mark, I have a question, I have a comment," and then we'll go from there. And you can stop me anytime. Okay? And we'll get great. Any question there, we'll try to take about at least 1 or 2 breaks and see where it goes and how the discussion goes, and we'll stay from there. All right, let's get started with ABR. ABR is one of the designations that ABR has. Then, and this is also as a referral member, it's going to be hard for you, but we did have some system that's actually here to clear financial wellness for yourself as well. A lot of times we as a real estate agent, we advise our clients about how to be financially well. Sometimes we forget about ourselves. So we will have a program in NAR that can help you with that as well. And the main in the PowerPoint. Whenever you see you see a bottom of the page is where that's the number of the page that's going to be on your manual. So if you get lost, just follow the manual, and that way I show some PowerPoints, but it's always a good idea to follow the manual that's given to you already. Hopefully everybody has the manual. Yes? Yes?
I don't know.
No one has manual? Was manual passed down?
Via chat box. Check your chat box. We just send it a link.
Okay. That is in your chat box now from coming from your association. So please use that. And that should be your guiding light in the future, because that has more detailed information than my slide will. All right? Let's get going. So just an introduction. First goal is to understand and demonstrate your value to today's buyer. You look at it, says, Mark, how we practice real estate in the United States and Cambodia is different. It is true. But one thing that we have to remember, why people buy houses throughout the world is the same. Well, the buyer, this is how we are going to experiment for next 4 sessions to understand what buyers' thinkings are, and also what we need to do to make sure we understand buyers. And I think the dream of home ownership is not just for U.S. or Cambodia, it's throughout the world. So to me is, by going through this course, I thought this might be more helpful than the CIPS class, because they might not be interested in international real estate, but this buyer ABR class will help you to understand what buyers are thinking, and also learn a good practice from yours. And if you could share your practice as well, that would be great as well. And this is going to be a very, very going to help you to become successful real estate agent, or especially as a buyer's agent. Well, I know that a lot of times in a lot of the countries, you will both work with the buyer and the seller. But remember, in the United States, most of our transaction is done by separate agent on the seller side and the buyer side. Well, not like a dual agent, meaning that you represent both seller and a buyer, but is about less than 3% in the United States. And also some states require the buyer agency agreement to be signed by law. And when we talk about U.S.'s law, remember the U.S. has 50 states, and each state has different law. So where Yoshi's from New York, or where I'm from Seattle, Washington State, we have a different real estate law, and even how we practice business is different as well. And I'll touch there that I'm using in New York as example as the United States. And if you could share with me how you practice in real estate in Cambodia, that helps me to understand better as well. We can always learn from each other. So what we will learn, we have 6 modules. We'll try to cover about module and a half a day. And that way that will be done with a total of 4 sessions that we're going to have. And we'll go from there. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of each day as well. And right now, there's no things that I'm going to say that I'm going to cover 1 and 2 today, 3 and 4. We'll just go and see and make sure that everybody's in good hands to understand what we're covering. So, there are many activities that's there, and I'm going to be doing some of the activities, but some of the activities are very difficult in Zoom. But we might ask you to do the activity, and maybe we might give you a little bit of a homework as well. Then you could bring it back tomorrow. So, any questions so far? Everybody's good? So, this is a knowledge base. This is not a basic class on how to work with a buyer. This is to improve your skills on working with a buyer's agent. And we'll talk a lot about in relative code of ethics and even real estate law in the country as well as we move forward. And how that relates to a buyer broker or buyer agency as well. This is how it turns to become an ABR in the United States. But you don't have it easy because you are international realtor member. It's really easy to get a ABR designation. So this is what you need to do. You need to successfully completion of the 2-day ABR. For us, it'll be the first morning ABR. When there's a one-time application fee, then you need to maintain an active membership status in the International Realtor member as well. By completing this course itself will not give you an ABR designation. You only have your completion of the course to meet the requirement. And after that, you need to pay one-time fee to get the ABR designation and keep it as well. And also you to maintain ABR designation, all you have to do is you have to renew your IRM, International Realtor membership, every year. And actually, that's a whole lot cheaper than what we do. Because in the United States, you have to take 5 more transactions you have to do. We have to do ABR, 1 more process ABR you have to do. And we pay annual fee, which is more than once you have your IRM to maintain International Realtor member, it's only $75 a year. For us, in the United States, it costs closer to $200 to maintain our ABR designation each year. And we'll talk about more about this at the end of the class, so you have a full understanding of it. All right? What are some of the benefits of a REBAC? ABR is run by real estate. REBAC is one of the council within the Realtors Association, will have their own Facebook network pages where you can use as a referral base throughout the world. You got network and referral. We'll have a 35,000 ABR designees throughout the world as well. I'm sure if you're looking for clients ABR agents in US, I can almost guarantee that there's an ABR designee almost any city that you choose to. Because again, you have own tools to interact with the buyers and other resources, publication, and you get an email newsletter as well from ABR on a very regular basis. These are some of the benefits that you have. With this and CIPS, you have a vast variety of network in the United States and throughout the world. And also, ABR has become one of the most popular courses throughout the world as well, and it's getting to be very popular as much as CIPS class, because ABR class is more applicable to all of you who practice real estate, wherever the country it is. It doesn't have to do with international. All right? So, when we talk about in this class, salesperson, we'll talk about salesperson means real estate agent. We'll use that as an agent as well. Because in the United States, there's a broker, managing broker in charge, designated broker, agent, salesperson. There's many, many different terms. In the United States, especially in our state, my state, we have a 2 level of them license. One is the broker, and the other one is managing broker. In order for you to manage or own an office, you have to have a managing broker's license. But many states in the United States, it's called agent. We don't have a broker license. So, but most of the state is a two-tier membership as well. So we just want to make sure that when we talk about it, salesperson, agent, today in purpose of ABR, that's what we're talking about. As in a full, as a working as a buyer agent. And there's a glossary, meaning there's an explanation of what each term is, and the resource pages of your book, which is the last section in your booklet that you just received. And I highly suggest you to keep that, download it so you can have it, and maybe it might be even good to print it and to know it as we move forward as well. So one of the things that we have to do is, in order for you to use Realtor, you would have to have an international Realtor membership in order to use the word Realtors. Realtors are trademark and protected, and not all real estate agents are Realtors. And also, as I mentioned, ABR is a Realtor designation. It's not a real estate agent designation. And non-member is never permitted to use Realtor or Realtor's associate. So you have to be a Realtor member. And if you're a Realtor member, you're able to put the R or use a Realtor as part of your business card in your marketing as well. All right. Any questions so far? Everything's good? Maybe we'll start with module 1. Value and role of the buyer representation. Remember, this class will mainly concentrate on you as a buyer's agent or buyer representative, not on the seller side. When we get into the seller side a little bit, mainly we're going to talk to us about buyers. There are other classes that are variable, such as SRS, which is Sales Representative Specialist. There's classes SRS as well, which is offered by the one of the NAR's sister association within our association as well. James, make sure you're muted, please. Thank you. And then module 1, which should be page 9 of your booklet. The module one's learning objective is define your value proposition. What is your value proposition? When client wants to work with you, what is your value? You recognize how the buyer and agent relationship is legally formed. And that's different in each state, but I share with you the U.S. standpoint. And maybe you could apply that to your client as well in Mongolia. I'm sorry about that, in Cambodia. And understand your duties and responsibility as buyer's representative as well. All right? So, biggest thing is you are buyer's advocate. You have to let your buyer know. Remember, in the United States, most of us do not do a due diligence, meaning to represent a seller and a buyer in the same transaction. But what we will do is we either take buyer's side or the seller side. If we're on the buyer, you need to let your buyer know, says, look, yes, I am on your side. I'm here to advise you to a buyer agent, as a buyer agent, and you as a buyer as well. Finding the right home with the best price in the terms possible for the buyer. Remember, you're working on behalf of buyer, not on seller. And serve as a trusted guide throughout the process. And you protect your client's interest, which is your buyer. If protecting your client's interest becomes very difficult if you plan to do an agent, because there's a conflict. Trying to do best for the seller and best for the buyer sometimes does not match well. So that's why, like myself, I did not do dual agency at all. I only done like a 3 dual agency in my 23-year career as a real estate agent in the United States as well. Also because, and this is when you establish a relationship, that's when your confidentiality starts as well, meaning that you are to keep every information the buyer tells you confidential. Because there's a lot of things the buyer may tell you. But you have to keep that confidential. It's not your job to tell that to the seller or the other side unless the buyer instructs you to reveal that message as well. Such as, this is how much I'm willing to pay for this house, but I want to start from here by making offer of this price. You are not supposed to reveal that information to the other side to give a seller advantage. You are representing the buyer, and you make sure the confidentiality, we need to keep your information to yourself and to your buyer, unless buyer instructs you to tell the other side, which is a seller, a certain information. So knowing the value. Today's home buyer has lots of options. It's your responsibility to demonstrate that you are valuable, that they are willing to work with you. The question is, who are you? Who are you to your clients? What does your client need from you? These are the two big questions. Who are you to your client? Are you just an agent? Facilitating? Or are you a trusted advisor? So what is your client looking for from you as a buyer agent? Those are the things that you need to understand and you need to know.
I have a question, sir. If you like. Is it possible in Cambodia that an agent here can serve in the same times the buyer and the seller?
It is in Cambodia, it is.
They can serve.
And many of the countries are.
So how they do to serve and keep secret everything if you have the same client?
As an agent, you have an obligation to keep each other's comments separately and secret. That's why buyer agents is very, very hard. I mean, doing both sides is very hard. Because sometimes the buyer knows what they were willing to pay for, and you know what seller is willing to sell it for. And sometimes you cannot reveal that to each other. So that's why it's very, very difficult to be able to serve the both party to best of their ability. Okay. I have yet to figure out how to work for both buyer and the seller at the same time.
Okay. But it happens sometimes. It can happen, right?
It could happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It happens, but confidentiality still remains. Just because you're representing both sides does not mean that you could tell everything to each other. That's not your job. You need to keep it confidentiality until either the seller or the buyer, right, tells you that you could tell to the other side.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. What do buyers value? Yes, you are the expert they are seeking, right? They're looking for services, information, and guidance. Those are the three things that they're looking from you. Services, information, and guidance. It's our job to make sure the deal goes through and mutual agreement is reached and the transaction closes, but you are not to be compromising each other's position, especially right here, we're talking about buyer's position. This is where the ethics comes into quite a lot. And there's a lot of times we don't follow the ethics that we need to get a deal done. And that could be in trouble. It could get into trouble. And right now, we're on the page 10 of our booklet. That's there. So, what do buyer want from most of their agents? These are the survey taken in the United States. And I don't think there's not much different in a lot of places. But one of the things that they want to do is, one thing that they're looking for, one from the buyers, number one, help find the right home to purchase. 51% of the people say that. The second one is help buyer negotiate the terms of the sale. They want you to help you negotiate the best deal for them. And again, it goes help with the price negotiations as well. Remember, price negotiations with term negotiations is a little bit different. Price is just a number, right? Terms is might be a little bit different. When we're going to close, what you like to happen during the transaction, etc. So they want help with the paperwork because paperwork could get very, very confusing. If they also want to know to make sure that they are finding, and determine what comparable home is selling for, which means that they want to know about whether they're paying the right price for the home or not. And when they ask you that, Mark, what do you think? You think this is a right price? And you should be able to give your opinion on it. At the end of the day, the buyer must make that decision. And that, when they give you that, ask that question, it becomes difficult if you're working for both sides because you already know why seller priced that home the way it was. One of their reasons might be. Most important factors in choosing an agent. These are the three things that is most important to you as well. Somebody's doing sharing screen. Please do not do that. After we do share the screen, so please do not share screen while we're doing this again. Thank you. All right, you able to see the share screen? Yes. Okay. Sorry for the interruption. So please do not share. I'll try to share screen on your side. But these are the three things that they're looking for: honesty, experience, and reputation. And you both develop and control these factors. And you're in control. Of course, experience, you have to develop it. But other thing, honesty and reputation, you need to control that as well. Especially now on the world with the internet, it's very, very important because your news, good or bad, travels very, very fast. So this is one thing you look at. How buyers search for homes right now. I think it's very, very similar to in many places. Your lifestyle was online. You go start with online, and depends on which country it is and so forth. But most of the, or about 45% of the buyer starts online, and about 18% contact the real estate agent to help you from it. And in Cambodia, where it's not exclusive listing, and there's no MLS, yes, they might be contacting many different agents to work with them. Because of that, a lot of the transaction, my understanding in Cambodia is done dual agency, meaning that you represent both seller and the buyer. But most of the buyer does start looking online through some of the consumer website. We say B2C, business to consumer website, and they're looking for. Well, there's that change. And this even increased like faster after COVID as well, where a lot of us were, not able to go around and do a lot of businesses during COVID last several years. I know that it's coming back now, and it's almost back to normal, hopefully, at least the interaction wise. But this is where the buyers are looking for. So visit and open and close. In the United States, only about 4% that they'll do open house to find the homes that they like. So, when you look at this, almost all the buyers in the United States use a real estate agent. In 2022, 88% of the buyer used a real estate agent. Maybe 12% they decided that they don't need the agent. Sometimes they went straight to the listing agent and not have a buyer agent representation. Because some people think they get better. But remember, our job is not just to find a house for them, but also our job is to help them right through the transaction as well. As you know, real estate transaction, most of the people don't do this every day or every year or every month. So maybe once or twice in a lifetime, unless you're an investor. So you need to guide them through the complicated process of buying the home. And the buyer find agents. The biggest is referred by or was a friend, neighbors, relatives. 47% of people are done by referral. Right now for my business, on the real estate right now, for me, I am about 95% of my business is coming from referral and a past client as well. And maybe I'll get maybe 2 or 3 brand new clients every year. But most of them are referral by my past clients or fellow realtors throughout the world. That's how I get my business as well. Or some of them, they say, I'm going to use Mark because I like Mark. That's around 13%. He's in an open house. Whether if I like the agent, I'm in an open house. So 7% is going to the website. Or they found the agent by asking about certain property, and they like the agent that will answer the phone, or even who has it listed as a listing agent. And also referred by another real estate professional is about 5%. So this holds to be true. The real estate is a trust business. That's why you have a lot of referral. And that's one of the things you want to do is you want to build your referral business as well. And that becomes a very, very important. So what does this mean to you? Every personal interaction in relationship matters. Remember, you have to remember you are your business. You're the business. But every transaction, every interaction with a client, either agents, community residents, local business, everything they do is about building a relationship. And relationship is the one that's going to help build your business. I know that some of you have been practicing real estate for a very long time, and you understand that. Because whether you're doing commercial, residential, or property management, or whatever it might be, especially when you buy a home, that is one of the largest purchases that people ever make in their life. So they want to be careful, and they want to make sure that they are able to work with somebody that they can trust. So that's the important part as well. Yeah. This is one that do it later. It's on the page 13 of SWOT analysis. Yeah, this is something that you should open your booklet and make sure you try this, because this is going to help you establish your business with well. All right, Grace. So when I say SWOT, this is what you're going to do. So you need to identify your business. I want you to do this as part of the homework to build your business. Whereas a SWOT is called strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So let's look at strengths and weaknesses. These are internal factors. Number one, internal means within your a company or your own business. But your brokerage can have a name recognition in your community market. Is your having a brokerage name such as Century 21, Limax, ERA, or whatever it might be, is that helping your business? Or is your office providing your variety of resources that you can use or access to improve your business? Well, it's very knowledgeable. Where are you? Are you still brand new that you need a lot of help? I mean, look at it. Do you often get referral from your clients? If you're not getting referral from your clients, what you're not doing right, you might want to think about that. So when you do it, you're definitely going to fill out in these boxes. Strengths, that's going to help who you are. Is it a strength or weaknesses, all these items? Do you have a strong list of contacts and connections? The CRMs, client relationship management tools. Do you have a good list of database of your clients and the customers that who's always going to help your business? If it's not, it may be a time to build a good database as well. And review your current marketing strategy. Something that you could take there internally. That could become a strength and weaknesses. You need to figure out what is your strength and what is your weaknesses. That's including the company that you work for. I'm not saying one company is better than the others, but what it is, you want to make sure that you're working with a company that where your style fits as well. Well, let's put some of the things just as an example for me. I work with a company called Windermere Real Estate, which is one of the largest franchisee in the Pacific Northwest, in the West Coast as well. We're not a nationwide company, but we are just the Pacific Northwest, where Seattle, Washington, Oregon is. In my market here in Seattle area, we have over 35% of market share. Our name, Windermere Real Estate, is one of the most trusted brands in the Seattle area. Actually, even beat Microsoft and Amazon to be one of the most trusted names in Pacific Northwest. So there's a strength that I have for working with the Windermere. What is a weakness? You could be look at weaknesses for me is, I need to continue to educate myself. Maybe my weakness is that I don't know certain things. I'm not up to it. I'm not taking enough classes to improve myself as well. So that you could figure all that out. This is something that you really want to work on and make sure you know where you stand. You need to know yourself before you're able to sell yourself. Any questions on this strength and weakness part?
Is it marketing?
Everybody's okay? Okay. Remember, I don't use the chat room, so don't put it in chat room. Everybody's okay? All right, let's look at the external factors. This is something that sometimes you're not able to control. It's coming from outside. Opportunities leads to threats. Who are the most successful agents in your area? And why? You want to study that. Why is that agent successful? It's always good to learn from the best. Study the successful agent and what they're doing. And that's an opportunity that you might have to learn. Is the market heating up or cooling down for buyers? Is it a buyer's market or seller's market? Sometimes those we're not able to control. A lot of times the economy controls that as well. Now, challenges faced by the buyer or by seller. Like in the United States right now, challenge that we have is our interest rates is getting higher. And also we have lack of inventory, meaning we don't have enough houses to sell. In the United States, we are about 4 million houses short in order for us to be more even. So that's what I do. The mortgage rate, maybe a year ago, used to be right around, 3.5%, 4%, and now we're upwards over 6% and a little bit over 6%. So if you look from 3.5 to 6, you almost double the interest rate. So that shrunk the buyer's ability to buy home because of the interest rate is higher as well. When home buying, that's sort of buyers moving. That might be opportunity or threats. There might be some apps that helps you to take threats in your business because they're performing what you're supposed to be doing as well. But I truly, truly believe no matter how technology advances, the real estate agent's job is safe because right now, no AI is willing to be able to tell how the buyer or the seller feels. We are still only able to see and feel the buyer, how the buyer's feeling as well. No AI has not been able to accomplish that yet. And I don't think it will. And buyer wants to touch and feel what they're buying, and they want to talk to somebody human in order for them to make the most expensive purchase decision as well. Any questions when it's opportunities and threat? Everybody's okay? All right. So this is the exercise you want to do on page 15, right? And you're going to try and see and do this and make sure it works. As well, it's going to help you. And this is why I don't over. If you need to get better, I think you need to do this on your own and figure out. So what I do is I do this every year. Before I plan my business plan, I do the SWOT analogy every year. Right now it's coming up in September, October, because I usually finish my business plan by end of October for the following year. because once it hits holiday season in the United States, it's very, very difficult to think about it. And time goes very quickly and get busy. So business plan is one of those things. And I do swap analogy every year in order to form my business plan for the following year. And it's meaning, we only have about 2.5 months, about 3 months to complete my business plan for 2020. So also, when you look at SWOT plan, and after that, you need to come up with the actionable rhythm. It's always good to analyze, but if you don't put that into practice or put it into action, it doesn't really mean anything. So what you need to do is you need to come up with 2 ways to capitalize on the analysis and advantage. You need to do that and 2 ways to mitigate disadvantage. When you find out what's your disadvantage, you have to solve that issue as well. And those are the things that you have to do. Okay? These are all on page 15 on your booklet. Value proposition. How does value proposition work? Value proposition is geared towards your clients in your market. Gives you competitive advantage. Your market distinction expressed as services you offer to business. Value proposition. So anybody like to share with me when they ask you, says, why should I work with you? What is your answer? Anybody? Anybody want to share? What's the value for working with you? Why should I work with you? Who wants to share? Well, each one of you should have a value proposition. That's something that you are able to tell your client. When they ask you, say, why should I work with you? And you should be able to tell why they should work with you. As well. Yeah, my Lord, sister. Okay. We learn quite a lot by sharing each other's information as well. Especially now on the Zoom, we don't even know if you're listening or not because most of you have your camera on. In the United States, I'm not going to do it for Cambodia. In the United States, I do not allow people to be off camera. I only allow people to be on camera, so at least know that you're at least paying attention half of the time. Because right now, I have no idea what most of you are doing. I have no idea what you guys are doing. I don't know if you're playing golf, driving. I have no idea. I appreciate if you could turn some of your camera on and be participant of this class. Classes you learn by talking to each other. Okay. Anybody has any comments? Nothing?
No.
Okay.
It's good. So far, good. So far, so good, sir. Yeah.
I have a question, Mark.
Okay.
Like usually to be the buyer representatives, like usually how many months they have to sign or they don't need to sign with the agent when the agent to be their representative. And another question, like sometimes like if you are the buyer representative, like usually the commission you charge from the owners, from the sellers, agent, or you charge from the buyer itself, buyer themselves, sorry.
Yeah, we will cover that as we get going about buyer agency agreement. Yeah, we'll cover that as we get going today too as well. So we should be covered, and probably by tomorrow, if day or two, we should be able to cover that as well. So just hopefully I will be able to answer that question as well. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody else comments or what is your buyer proposition? They ask you, says, why should I work with you? What is your answer?
Hello, Mark. I have something to say for you.
Sure.
Yes, for the value proposition, my company, when my client asks me why I work with you, so I tell them that because we are a professional agent that can work for them with the base price of the property they need.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. But think about it. In front of you, whether you work for the company or for yourself, you need to come up with something that's unique than anybody else. That is the key. You have to be different than anybody else. You will only figure that out. So the way to make you look good is not to put other companies down. You have to give a value. Then why should work with you or your company if you're the owner instead of the other company? Because all the companies say, right, we offer professional service.
Can I start off with
say? Sure, go ahead.
Me, I will say maybe what's the difference between other companies is our marketing, how we present the house on the market. What's make the difference between from one to the others?
Okay. That's fine. How about you? Yeah, that's fine. That's good. But how about for buyers?
For buyers?
Yeah, think about it. I know that's not that easy to think about, especially in a country where you do run a bureau agency. But think about it. One year buyers,
I think as buyers will have to make a study that how much the market is around the area is looking for. And we will have an idea the price is going to be around, if he has the budget or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But it's not the skill every the real estate license you should have.
So sorry, say that again.
Isn't that the skill that every real estate agent should have? So my thing is that you need to find out something that's unique to you. To be able to say, I am different than anybody else. And I'm not telling you need to say that right now, but you need to figure that out. Because every single one of you here is in competition, right? You don't have to review everything, but you need to figure out why you're different than other people. So what is the value to them by working with you? Other person. That's something that you really, really, truly need to think about.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Because you're trying to beat the competition and show the difference of the value that you have. Worst marketing you could do is says, I am better than that person. We don't need to put other people down in order to bring yourself back up. You need to provide a positive value when trying to use a negative marketing. That is called negative marketing when you're putting other people's down. That's what politicians do, right? Says I'm better than that person because that person is that. You know, as a Cambodia, right? We just went through. We're going through presidential election, right?
It can be one advantage, maybe when they buy, maybe about the process, maybe it can buy maybe a long-term payment. You can buy with the low.
Yeah, that's about the property. But remember, talk about your service as well. Okay? So just think about it. I'm not telling you to tell me what it is, but you really need to think about that. What is your value? What makes other consumer wants to work with you? especially as a buyer. In some places, actually, we're going to see that a little bit later, buyer pays buyer broker agreements with. A lot of times, if in the United States, if the seller is not offering money, make sure you're muted. I know some of you are muted. Give it. The buyer pays me to work, and I'll explain that in the commission in the future. So your unique value proposition, we got the sound up there. Please, can you make sure that everybody's muted, please? Thank you. Okay. Education. Maybe you have a specialized training. This is what you're doing today, right? Getting designation is one thing, but you need to use it as part of an advertisement. If you're going to be working with a buyer, you could say, look, I have an ABR designation. I have a specially trained. I learned from the US how to best work with a buyer. I have that special training. That might be a unique value proposition. Expertise, your market knowledge and skills that you might have. Experience. What you have done? What you have learned? Where I learned from me, I've been doing this for 23 years. So I reached up experience over probably about over half of the agents that were still in the business. What's certainly in my value proposition. I've gone through many different markets, especially if you've been in a business for over 15 years. Well, not even more than 15 years, I guess. 2007, 2008, I guess about 15 years. That's when the last market really went down. I have experienced that. Most of the real estate agents has lived in the United States experienced the market till this year. So I have both experience. That is advantage for me as well. How about essence? Who you really are? What do you stand for? Meaning that your ethics. Do you have an ethics? Is ethics more important than making money for you? Think about that. Is ethics more important than making money for you? Expertise, right? Education. All these should be your unique value proposition. We'll talk a little bit more in our module 2 as well. When you think about it, you need to list out education, expertise, experience, and essence to make out who you are. Maybe it's a very good info. I'm good to create a business profile if you have never created a business profile for you as well. Well, the buyer-agent relationship is formed. So, I think it's a good time to take a break right now before we get into this new topic. Before we take our break, everybody has any question or comments so far in the one we study? Everybody's okay?
Cool.
All right. Let's get back and let's get started. We are on page 16. And we'll be going to page 17 now. Okay? So how buyer and agent relationship is formed? We talk a little bit about legally, but that doesn't really apply to you in the Cambodia. But I will show you the concept of what does client versus a customer. What is the difference between client versus customer as well? So, long relationships are built on strong first impression. The first impression really doesn't matter, right? How long does it take for you to give a first impression. Remember, we call it first impression because you're going to give one time, you're going to have one chance to give a first impression about yourself. So what does that mean? What are some of the important things that you have to do? Build trust throughout the process for productive working relationship, right? We're beginning to build a trust. It's hard to get a trust from the first meeting, but when it's a referral client and referred by somebody, you actually started that process when somebody they think is the right person is telling about yourself as well. So client that comes through referral was a whole lot better client than the other clients that you might get from open house or just a chat coming in. And knowing the legal aspect of the relationship is critical. There might not be legal aspect in Cambodia. I could share with you, like I said, as a concept, what is the mean as well. So let's talk about first meeting. It sets the tone. Remember, we talk about the first impression. Think about it. When you go to like a department store and one of that person that work in the department store comes up and asks you, says, "Man, I help you, Mark?" How long does it take for you to make a decision whether you want to work with that person or not? How long does it take? Just the seconds, right? Because we are animal that trust our first instinct or first decision. But what is one of the most important things that you could do to make a first impression is, I would say, if you want to be trained as a professional, you have to act like a professional. To me, that is including how you dress as well. You call yourself a professional. Let's say you're a doctor, medical doctor. Which doctor that you trust? Doctor who's wearing a tie and in a white robe versus doctor that who's in shorts, short pants, and t-shirts. Which doctor would you most likely would trust to start with? That's the same thing as a real estate agent. I was taught when I was working for Japanese business in a corporation before I was going into real estate is that you always should look one step better than your client. And here's that man in our office when I was working for this Japanese company, we have a dress rule. We always have to wear a tie and a two-piece suit, 2 or 3-piece suit. That was a uniform. That was their company model that we have to dress better than your client or the same. And I truly still bring that to the day right now. And I know it's different in each country, but you want to make sure you dress professionally because you only want to have 15 seconds or less to make the first impression. To set the tone for the buyer's agent relationship, first meeting is important, right? Opportunity to share your value and services. This is where you're going to share why they should work with you rather than somebody else. What is your value proposition? That is the important part that you could do on your first meeting, where they say, "Oh, I will work with Mark because he's different than everybody else." By putting other agents down is not going to win your trust. Nice. Because if you talk bad about other people, what does it stop for the buyer to think that you might be talking bad about them as well? And of course, in the meeting, we start learning about the buyer, their situation, what they've been looking for. What's their goal for buying a home? or buying a business. You need to know their background as well. That one we'll go through a little bit further on the module 2. But that's what you need to find out. You need to get to know them, just like they need to get to know you as well. Start beginning building trust in the relationship. First impression matters, right? Be prepared. Be professional. Then you have to be yourself. You can't fake it. They find out. Because when you're buying a home, buyer buys with not just the logic, but with the emotion as well. Remember, they're not just buying a home. They're not just buying a house, guys. You're buying a home and a lifestyle with a dream. So being yourself, that's what you want. But, not necessarily everybody's going to work with you. Not because you're the right person. Sometimes you're not clicking with each other. That could happen. The first impression matters. So my suggestion to you is dress well. You don't have to overdress, but you want to make sure that you're in business attire. And I know most of you are in business attire. Whatever the appropriate business attire is. Of course, you're in the land sales. Of course, you're not going to be wearing a suit. Maybe you can on in a big field. Right? Dress appropriate for whatever the business you are doing. Formalizing the relationship. Buyer representative agreement is important. Tomorrow in the chat room, I'll share with you what buyer representative agreement looks like in the United States as well. Right? What is a buyer agent does? It clarifies the duties to your buyer client. It protects your financial and compensation interests. The buyer agent agreement states the rule with who pays. In other words, if seller is not willing to pay for your commission, then maybe the buyer has to pay it. Unless you want to work for free. You protect you from potentially serious legal consequences. Living in a country does not require a written agreement. It benefits all parties by solidifying the relationship and duty. State of Washington, we just voted, the legislature voted, and starting the January of 2024, buyer agency agreement is required by the state law to have signed in order to work with a buyer. Well, probably about 1 dozen states that it is required. Most of the state and most of the brokerages, if it's not required, they do encourage you to use it, but it's not by law. But making it by law makes our life easier because that's the law. You don't have to try to sell the buyer agency agreement. The buyer agency agreement protects your business as well. So you really, really need to understand what buyer agency agreement is. Common mistakes in the agency discussion. Acting. Meaning that you're acting like a buyer agent, but you actually really are not a buyer agent. Avoiding. Avoid discussion of the contract to avoid pressuring the buyer. Relying on the state of the default agency position. Depends on which state it is, which country it is. How does agency is legally defined? You're not serving the buyer knows you are on their side. Don't assume that. Even in the United States, without a buyer, think the buyer agent like myself, if I were the buyers, and they still work for the seller because many of the times the seller pays the fee. But remember, I did not get paid until my buyer make an action to purchase and to buy something for me to get paid. So it's not the seller that's really paying. The buyer's action, what they are doing, is going to make me bring some money to me as well. In delaying, signing buyer's representation agreement until buyer is ready to make an offer. Think about it. If you are taking a listing, whether exclusive or open listing, I think many times in Cambodia, so it's open listing, right? Are you going to start working for the seller before you sign contract? Would you? No, right? So really think about it. Why do you work with the buyer without having any contract signed? Think about that. Just simple logic. You're not going to start spending money and time for the seller unless you have a listing agreement, right? Agreement to sell. Why we do that all the time with a buyer? Spend money, time, drive them around, spend time, buy them coffee, or maybe it's a tea in Cambodia or lunch. Why would you do that without having any assurance that you might get paid? Think about that. The buyer's agreement, I use it 100% of the time, regardless if it's a law or not. Because my logic is, I'm not making a commitment to work for the buyer, and I want the same commitment from the buyer that they're going to work with me, well, just with me, not with all other people as well. So what determines your relationship? Your relationship with the buyer, client, is determined by state law. I told you, in the United States, there's not a federal real estate law. It's all about each state. So we have 50 states and 4 territories. We have 55 different real estate laws. And also, if you don't have a state law, Realtors Code of Ethics helps you determine. Well, office policy determines your relationship, how to establish buyer-client relationship. Services buyer value most can be offered only in a buyer-agent relationship. Buyer-agent relationship means what? Will become your client, not just a customer. Because everybody's a customer to us. A client. The realtors represent the exclusive agreement. This is a Code of Ethics on Article 16-9 says, realtor prior to enter into a representation agreement have an affirmative obligation to make reasonable effort to determine whether the prospect is subject to a current, valid, exclusive agreement to provide the same type of real estate service. Even though state law might not have that, but realtors, Code of Ethics gives a guidance on what does that mean on standards of practice 16-9, which is under Article 16. Code of Ethics have 17 articles, and this is under 16. Exclusive relationship. And we talk about it a little bit, and I know Gilbert asked a question about confidentiality, right? Agency disclosure and confidential must take place before any substantive discussion happens. And you need to let them know at least that everything you tell me is confidential unless you tell me to tell it to the other side. Many states require written explanation of all legal facts of the brokerage, even if not offered by the brokerage. In the United States, caution prospect against very confidential information. In the state, designated agencies, notice of no agency, general agency. When we talk about the general agency, each state has a different law in the United States of what that means. For the state of Washington, you can do dual agency by using a permission from both sides to say that you're going to be a dual agent. But once you become a dual agent, you're not going to be able to share the confidential information or give them a specific advice for a transaction or the price, because you might be revealing what the other side is thinking, that information that you have for both sides. So you're kind of stuck in the middle. Dual agency is hard. Like I said, I've never been able to figure out. It's like the court. How can you be an attorney for plaintiff, people who sue? And how can you be an attorney for people defending? The same person doing that. I have no idea how to do that. When you become a dual agent, you have to become a judge. You listen to both sides without revealing the confidential information to the other side as well. Any questions? That's good. What about a representational agreement? It could be an expressive agreement, which is in writing. By representation, listing agreement, right to lease, property management, to be oral or by action to be express agreement. In prior agreement, meaning can be created by actions that you take or statements that you might make, the conduct that you do. So not necessarily, even in the United States, you don't have to have a written agreement. Sometimes by your action, that makes a representation agreement. So we really have to be careful on what we say and how we act around potential buyer and the seller. Implied agreement can happen without agent's consent. You might not even know that it's happening. And that can be created agency even if there is a signed acknowledgement saying that you are not their agent. A certain action could give you an implied agreement. And I like that often it state specific means it depends on which state you're from, what that means. Often it happens when seller agent works with the buyer customer without proper disclosure. And so it's very important. Disclose. We set it up. And what needs to be disclosed is different in each state. Agency disclosures. How is agency disclosure done in your state? Like I said, the Washington, it becomes a mandatory in starting 2024. Is that enough? Yeah, but that's enough. Because I have to acknowledge that we're going to be working with you in exclusive buyer agency agreement that we have to have a signed starting January of 2024. What about you? Are you in sync with your brokerage? What is the brokerage's rule? For agency relationship, a statement of agency policies, rational to the company policy. Is it same as company policy? require disclosures. Remember, in the United States, most of us are independent contractor who belongs to the agency, but we're not getting paid salary, so we have a contract with the authors or brokerage. Is there a buyer exclusive buyer agency agreement? Even the number of buyer clients, what time can you have? Right now, for me in this market, I can only work with about 4 buyers at a time. They're looking. Once they get under contract, I can do that. But it's very difficult to manage time to grow a business in trying to show houses to 4 different buyers. So any given time, I try to have my buyer right around 4 people that's actively looking. In the United States, right now in August is one of the slow times because most of the people new school starts in September. Most of the people have bought houses or finished buying houses or get under contract in July. They try to close and they try to move to the new house. Last week, I have 2 buyers went under contract. And I have 3 more buyers that they're looking for, but they're taking a summer break and to get ready to go vacation. Then they'll be start looking again in September after the school starts as well. Agency everything. What's the office policy? Designated agency options. Implementation of a dual or designated. Well, my policies, I do not do a dual agent. If some buyer wants to buy a property of my own that I have listed, I refer the buyer to the one of my team members, so they could take care of them as their buyer's agent. And I pick up a referral fee for this one. If they decide not to buy this one, then I get them back and continue to work with them. So I try not to do a dual agency. Very, very hard. Like I said, I done only 3 times in my 23-year career of doing a dual agency. Because it's very, very difficult to serve our clients to the best of our ability to give a good advices if I'm representing both sides. And client confidentiality is very, very difficult to do when it's a dual agency. What are your duties to clients and responsibility to customers? This is how you look at duty to client is old car. You owe obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, banking, meaning that you don't make sure that you treat the money property, reasonable care and diligence. Responsibility to customers, they're a little bit different. It's hard. Honesty. Accounting, reasonable skill and care, and disclosures as well. Disclosure meaning that there are certain disclosure laws, like in the United States, most of the time, if I know the material defect of the property, whether I'm representing the seller or the buyer, I need to let the other party know. Even though seller says, Mark, let's hide that there is a hole in the roof. But if I find that there's a hole in the roof, I have to disclose it. Even the seller might instruct me to say, Mark, please hide that one. Summertime, it doesn't rain. Obedience and loyalty. For clients' lawful instructions, to client's interests ahead of all others. Right? Client comes first. Code of Ethics, Article 1 says, when representing a buyer, seller, landlord, or tenant, or other client as an agent, realtor, pledge themselves to protect and promote the interest of their client. This obligation to the client is primary, but it does not relieve realtors of their obligation to treat all parties honestly. You don't have to treat everybody equally, but you have to treat everybody honestly. When serving a buyer, seller, landlord, tenants, or other party in a non-agency capacity, realtors remain obligated to treat all parties honestly. They'll treat everybody party honestly. And a lot of times, depends on what the state law says as well. Disclosure. Disclosure all information that could affect the buyer's decision to purchase or the price they may want to pay. Action 2 says, Realtors shall avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of a pertinent fact relating to the property or the transaction. Realtors shall not, however, be obligated to disclose latent or in defects in their property to advise on the matters outside of the scope of their real estate licensing, or disclose facts which are confidential under this scope of the agency or non-agency relationship as defined in state law. What needs to be disclosed could be different. Material fact is usually the case. So, for example, it is like the state of Washington, any type of death that happens in the house, suicide, murder, illness, age, whatever that happened in the house, in state of Washington, we as a real estate agent does not have an obligation to disclose any type of death that happened in the house. But if you go to different states, some states do expect that you have to, let's say, sometimes let's say within the 3 years, whenever the death that happened in the house needs to be disclosed. But it's different in each state in the United States. Is there any type of law like that in Cambodia? I know, in a lot of places we were very superstitious about people die in the house. But is there any law that guides you in Cambodia about disclosures? Anybody could share what's happening in Cambodia? Nope.
But, sir, is it true that in Cambodia that I see there is a lot of superstition about numbers? They don't buy house because of numbers, or they face some certain roads, or they face something that if the roads came to front, the house is not good. There's many things like this, like you said, in Cambodia for superstitions.
Okay? But those are, superstitious people's preferences, correct? And not rather than the law.
Exactly.
Yep. And I understand a lot of the Buddhist countries have a lot of traditions and superstitions. But I might not even call it superstition. It's a culture, right? Yeah. Because it might be superstition. Superstition sounds very negative. But it's not. It's a different culture, has a different things to abide by. But those are things it's very important. Right? When in a certain culture, everybody understands that, right? A certain number is not good, right? Like if you go to Japan, number 4 is not good because 4 means death in Japan. Some people care, some people don't, even though that's why you call it superstition, right? Not because number 4 is there, not that everybody's going to care. As in, there are things that most people might care as well. But remember, look at in any culture, we don't like people dying in the house, right? We don't. They ask, did somebody die in the house and so forth? Most of the culture asks that. Well, what does most of our culture want? If you have a choice, where would you like to die? With old age or disease? Study, right? Most people prefer to, pass away of the last life at home rather than the hospital, right? In some cultures, make that accommodation. They send people home to have a last time to spend with your family at home. But sometimes, logically, it does not make sense. We don't want people dying in the house. Well, everybody wants to die in the house. So it's kind of hard sometimes. Now, each culture has a different take on many, many different things as well. Confidentiality. Many information learned about clients are told to you the client stays confidential after the termination of the even agency relationship. When said do not tell anybody, even though your relationship might be over, those are kept confidential, even after your relationship is over. Code of Ethics Article 1, Standard Practice 1-9 says the obligation of Rule 2 preserve confidential information as defined by state law, provided by your clients in the course of any agency relationship or non-agency relationship recognized by law continues after termination of an agency relationship or any non-agency relationship recognized by law. If the client says, Mark, do not tell, that stays with you forever. And you're not able to tell after your relationship is done. That's confidentiality. Confidential information, what are they? Stays confidential after transactions are over. Some state requires confidentiality to the customers, not just the client. There's some confidentiality in the agency relationship. Needs to be confidential when it becomes public or client releases their information. Be cautious when giving feedback can violate confidential information rules. No requirement you give a feedback. Get clients permission before you give feedback. Negotiation could start here. Okay. Safeguard money and property being held on behalf of the client. Code of Ethics, Article 8 says, workers shall keep in their special account in appropriately issued financial institution separated from their own fund money coming into their possession in trust for other persons, such as escrow, trust funds, clients' money, and other like items. In other words, we need to keep your funds separate. If they're giving you a deposit to keep, security deposit to keep, earnest money or whatever it might be, should not be going to general account that you have when you run business. It needs to be kept separately. That is a state law in most of all the 50 states in the United States that you have to keep the funds separately and it needs to be in trust account. Reasonable care and diligence. Protect clients from or seeking risk or the harm. Article 13, realtors shall not engage in activities that constitute the unlawfulness practice of the law and shall recommend that legal counsel be obtained when the transaction requires it. In other words, the United States will practice a license to practice real estate, but we don't have a license to practice being a lawyer. So don't practice law. But it's fun, right? For us, depends on which state it is. Like in New York, where yes, it's cool. Not attorney writes the purchase and sales agreement contract. Usually there's a verbal communication, right? In the state of Washington, we write our own contract. The agent writes the contract between buyer and the seller. So it's all different in each state, even in the United States. I'm sure in Cambodia, I think the agent does write the contract between the buyer and seller, but of course the closing is usually done by notaries or judicial scriveners, and depends on what type of system you're on. Reasonable care and diligence. Necessary clauses and contingency need to protect the buyer. Prepare a CMA for buyer clients. CMA is comparative market analysis report. Then using when you provide this report, so the buyer can show the buyer says, you know, the money that you're going to be paying for this house is a good price, and it's a market price. We're going to hold on to the information. What type of warranty that's available for them if they buy it. And sometimes I buy the whole warranty. While writing for about the issues affecting value of the resale. Advise on additional charges and costs. Obtain all required disclosures from the seller. Advise buyer to check on the important issue. One of the things to remember, buyer is going to live there. So let the buyer do some research. You remember the source of the resource. You let the buyer do the research. Reasonable care and diligence continues. Recommend inspections. In the United States, they always order us to want to recommend inspection. Provide a list of other professionals. Reference. People who could fix roof, water damage, etc., etc. Information client of possible negative influences. Let clients know where info comes from. Now, always verify, says, you know what, this is what I've heard from somebody. So you need to reveal the source where you're getting these information as well. So writer is really clear that who and where they're getting information. Buyer checklist. This is on page 29. You want to open on page 29? You'll be able to see the checklist that's there as well. This is some of those things that you might use, and you can use this page as a checklist to help you get that as well. This is a level of the service checklist that's on page 30. What level of the service are you willing to offer is 2. In the following page, talks about the customer versus client. What's the difference? These grades might be, you might be able to use this or translate and use that as well. Any question? Looks like somebody has their hand up. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Back to the article about the client's money. I'm not sure if in the US it is allowed for the broker to handle the client's money, because
Yes, you can handle it.
It may be okay.
Yeah, well, we have to, if you're going to put it in, you can't just hold it in a safe. You have to put it in a trust bank account in the United States.
I think in Cambodia we don't have such a regulation to set up a trust account to handle the money. That's not quite a risky approach. Yeah,
but I think it's a good idea to have a separate account, right? Because this is when you're going to get into a lot of legal troubles. When the client, you're commingling your money and client's money, and sometimes they spend, I hear a lot of cases in many countries that, real estate agents spend clients' money.
If you can I say something?
Sure.
When I'm here in Cambodia since 2012, and when I purchase a house, when I sell my place, Cambodian people, they trust me because I keep the money in another account that I didn't touch. So this is what I did. It's exactly approximately what you say in trust. But
That is correct.
Because I have no companies, but I put the money in another account separately. That's what I did. And I get a lot of trust about this.
Yeah, that is called trust account.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have that practice right now, I think it's a very good idea to do it, even though there's no regulation. In the United States, there's a regulation to do it. But it's always a good idea to keep it all separate, so we don't spend it by mistake or anything, right? And a lot of times what they do, is we give them a receipt that we deposit the money to our trust account as well. So our client really knows where you're going to spend the money. So good ideas. Thank you, Gilbert.
Just I want to say something, because here in Cambodia there's a very something that I really don't like, but this is the coutume here that what they do. If any deposit that you make, it can be 50,000, 100,000, whatever the deposit you make. If you change your mind, whatever, you lose your money. You lose your money. And there is another thing too that here people does. If you're in default or something like this, you can pay maybe 4 times the price, double the time, the price of the purchase. So there's different law here that I see that I was really surprised that I didn't know, but it exists. It exists. I see this with lawyers.
Right. There's different laws and different crazy laws. Sometimes you might say it. Not necessarily Cambodia is the worst, or U.S. is the villain. Right? I think the most important part, at least on the handling money, is, but you need to understand what the process is, and whatever that comes to your phone right now from Cambodia. Whether that is, one thing that you need to really look at it is that a law or is that based on the contract that you have? So that's one thing that you really have to figure out. What is the law and what's the common practice? Common practice does not necessarily mean that's the right things to do. The law you have to follow, right? It's going to have a different law. You have to follow that, whether you like it or not, right?
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah. I think what Julia just mentioned is not the law in Cambodia. It's just a practical, it's just a practice of the agreement. Yeah.
So, those are the things that we need to look at in the future, right?
It was with lawyers. So I don't know if lawyers, they a little bit fishy, but this was with lawyers.
Yeah. If it's agreement, if there's no law, then agreement, agreement could be willing. But some of the agreement, this becomes a common practice, whether it's a good, bad, or ugly, right? Because that means in Cambodia, we're protecting the seller a lot more than the buyer, right? Seller protection is more than the buyer protection. In the United States, it's a buyer beware. The buyer actually have more protection than the seller does in the United States. Because buyer is the one that's spending money. If they decide not to buy, seller still has the house, right? So that's the rationale the United States have. What is the damage if the transaction goes away? Seller still has the house. Yes, or a certain contract reasons, the buyer have to pay penalties, so lose their earnest money or deposit. The bottom line is, it's always good to have a separate account to keep the money. That's the trust between you and the client, regardless of what the practice or the contract says. It's good to have a separate account. It definitely is. Okay. Any other question? Somebody still have a hand up? Hello? You have your hand up? You okay?
No, she may just only confuse the hands up.
Okay. Really? Any other question? So responsibility to customer, right? We talk about the heart. This is a customer. Honesty in accounting, reasonable skills, disclosure. That's all even to the customer, according to Rotary Scoring Basis, not just by state law. You have that obligation. The heart is the acronym that we use. In Code of Ethics Guidelines, honesty is on Article 1, accounting is on Article 8, reasonable skills are Article 11, disclosure and material facts is Article 1 and 10, and what is listed on page 32 of your booklet.
Sure. I have just a question. All those laws is it apply in Cambodia too, or it's only from the United States?
With only United States, but I'm sharing with you.
Okay.
Yes, but this is not a law. Code of ethics is a realtor ethics. It's beyond which, as a realtor, these are the ones supersedes the state law. And usually the code of ethics that we have has a higher standard than state law does.
As a mentor, sorry, sir. As a mentor, did you check any law here about real estate?
A little bit, yes. But it's, it's hard to check about the real estate, and because that's the reason why we have you, because you guys are the one that does the real estate every day in Cambodia. But as a realtor, there's no reason whether it's your international realtor member or not, you should abide by code of ethics. That's there.
Do you see a big difference between the law here and the law in the States? Yes. Huh?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Okay. Okay, this is all. This is my questions. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So Code of Ethics Article 2, we already talked about that, right? Realtor shall avoid exaggeration. It's side 1 and 4. Check their ethics. In case where the code and the license law conflict, of course, you state you have a licensing law, so you have to keep the licensing law. But there's not a lot of places that code of ethics and licensing law conflict. What general guidelines should we follow? Displaying respect to everyone, right? We have to respect everybody, and of course, put your client first before your customer. But you still have to be honest to everybody. But the realtors always has an obligation to treat all parties honestly is what we need to do every day. Comparative review on Module 1. Buyers' representatives are selling their expertise to the clients. The relationship between client and agent is legally binding sometimes and carries specific duties. Even if there's not legally binding, it could be established in very different right? The representation agreement can be expressed or implied. Their specific terms vary by state or vary by countries. Now, once you promise that you're going to be working for them to the buyer, I truly believe that you have established an agency relationship with your buyer. Realtor must know and abide by the code of ethics and standards of practice. With that said, gain life with the realtor's buyer's rep. At the end of every module, you will find recap scenarios for what you do as well. This is on page 34. Why work with Accredited buyers representative? That was on page 45 that you could use this as part of your marketing here. Once you get your ABR designation, you'll be able to access ABR website and you'll be printing out clean one on this one as well. All right. Right now it is 11 o'clock. Let's take our 10-minute break. Then we'll finish up about another 15 minutes with starting from Module 2. And I'll stay around if you have any questions. So let's take our break. 10-minute break. Then again, I will run the timer on the screen. All right, let's get back and get started. Any question, comments before I get going or from module 1? Everybody doing okay? All right, let's get started with Module 2 a little bit. Well, we'll probably stop somewhere in the middle in the Module 2 so I can finish out the day. So buyer counseling session. This is one thing that's very, very important. So Module 2, learning objectives are explaining the goal of the buyer counseling session and how to prepare for the initial session. Conduct successful counseling session that educates the buyer, the trust, and leads to a signed buyer representation agreement. Understand the importance of the buyer representative agreement in relation to buyer royalty and compensation as well. So we talked about that already, right? A little bit, but we'll continue to work on. So, goal of the counseling session is this. The first appointment with the buyer is your counseling session. Buyer counseling session often translates to make the buyers your client. It requires people skills, knowledge of the laws, regulations, and policies. Right? So, practically speaking, you got to go down with agents of trying to accomplish on a counseling session. Build a rapport to get to know them. Showcase your services. Demonstrate your value. Remember we talked about that value proposition. Learn buyers' needs and wants and finances. Help buyer form realistic expectation of how the market is. Depending on what the market is, what buyers' needs might not be the truth. Decide if you want to work with them, the buyer or not. Remember, you do have a choice not to work with that buyer if you don't think the buyer is the right person either. And just like they have a choice to work with you or not, you do as well. Obtain a representation commitment. That might be in writing, verbally, whatever you decide to do, or you could do that as well. You can make that decision. Work through to find the right home. About buyer's goal. Buyer's goal is to get acquainted with the real estate professional, learn services that realtor can provide, describe features of the ideal home, learn about market conditions, obtain answers to questions and concerns, learn about searches and buying process. How does the buying process work? How do we search for homes? Decide if they want to work with my agent or not. This is like an interview with each other, right? So work together to find the right home. Is that definitely mistake? So for me, is I do buyer consultation before I start showing any houses to my client. A lot of time, my consultation now is through Zoom, just like this. I share screen, we do a Zoom meeting, share each other, share each other's information, and so forth. That's why I do my consultation a lot more. Sometimes you do meet person to person, but nowadays the Zoom is very popular to, like this video conferencing is very popular to do that. We always have a buyer consultation before I show any houses to my buyer. I think it's very important to set the expectation. At least the buyer knows the process, and I understand what buyer is initially looking for. And buyer always changes their mind all the time. But at least want to know what buyer is looking for, right? We just don't show a house because buyer wants to see this house. Now I don't know about it. And I'm going to make sure that I'm being able to service them the best of ability that I can. So one good example is you always, films are going here, you want to do a buyer orientations or buyer consultation before you start showing any houses. We're going to do buyer consultation right now before you show any houses. You should. Doctor is a professional, right? Just like going to medical doctor. Doctor does not start performing surgery on the same day that you go to the doctor, right? They talk to you, and you get to know each other. Then doctor runs some tests and things like that, right? Also, unless it's an emergency, right? Doctor doesn't say, okay, Mark, thanks for visiting me, let's do surgery. They don't do that. Same thing. We need to make sure that we take the right steps to explain the process that we might have. Any questions so far? These are some of the buyer qualification questions. These are listed on page 39 and 30. Maybe this is something that you need to ask your client if they're not minimally. How long have you been looking for a household? Now, why is that important? Because expectations set off how serious they are. It's, I've been looking for a home for 3 years. I've not found anything yet. Most likely we're not that serious yet. How long have you been doing that? I don't want to just be looking online. Well, check and see how many agents clear their houses. You know, what was the relationship with their with them, the piece of possession of your house? Is it just a verbal agreement, or do you have a signed buyer agency agreement? And then that's showing what did you sign with them, right? And ask them, do you see anything that you like with the other agent? They would say, oh, yeah, Mark, I found a couple homes that we really like. So what kept you from buying that home? That might be good to know. One thing, sometimes you get very confused with the buyer. In one of the buyer qualifying questions, this is to qualify how serious you want to buy. And this becomes very, very important for you to understand. You will describe your ideal home. What is your ideal home? If we can't find everything, rather you compromise on. What is the deal breaker? This is, if this happens, and no, I'm no way I'm going to buy. How about kind of a little bit about your lifestyle, if you want, so that I could get to know you and what is important to you as well. If minor no object, what have you always wanted? What do you want in the home? That's need and want. So what I realized in my over again is one of the homework that I always give to the buyer, potential buyer is, says get a one piece of paper and draw a line in the middle of the paper vertically. And one side you put your need, what you need in a home. As a family, if you have a partner family, they need to have a family discussion on what is want in your home. Maybe everybody wants swimming pool, a home, right? Maybe, but not necessarily those are the need. Well, whatever the need might be, it's always good to have the buyer do a homework and figure out what their needs are and what their wants are. Need is something that you have to have. Most likely, want is something to be great if I have it. In the United States, you might say, I'll be great. We could have a swimming pool. I'll be great if you could have 3 bathrooms. But maybe it's not a need. Sometimes wants and needs and wants are different with each family. So it's a good way to have the buyer do homework. Easy. Lying in the middle of the paper, one side is need and one side is want. Well, bad counseling process is that you figure out buyers' needs and wants, And of course, then the buyer needs to be qualified for financing. How are they going to pay for it? Would they get a mortgage loan or pay the price? And it depends on what you do to find a property for them. How you assist them in getting the best price in the terms instead of getting to make offer. What it takes to get to close. I sometimes make it value. I think one of our value about a real estate agent is it's not about the finding the right home, not just that, but help us through the transaction after they become agreement is we might be able to fall apart. I always explain to my buyer or the seller how I get paid for all this. Because that's the myth part. Because a lot of times the buyer or the seller think, well, we make lots and lots of money. Well, all of us know we work very, very hard for our money. Sometimes it's an easy transaction, sometimes hard transaction, but we work very, very hard for the money. So it is always good to explain how you get paid. And to me, I even explain to them how much I get paid from the transaction and how those payment is divided. In the United States, a lot of us are working as an agent. So what we do is when the commission comes in, we split the commission with our office. Then we keep the half. From there, none of the expenses go out. So let's say you have a commission that's coming for $10,000. Usually the lowest split will be 50-50. In those office take 50%. I keep 50%. So I have $5,000. Then from there, I have to keep 1/3 for the tax, income tax I have to pay. So I have about $3,500 left. From there, all my expenses goes paid. All the gas and the coffee that I treated you, etc., etc. Then a lot of times buyers are surprised that we make rental money. Because it's a commission structure, independent contractor structure in the United States, whether I work with a client for 1 month, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, it really doesn't matter. My pay doesn't change. At the end of the day, because if the expenses goes up, you most likely will be getting paid a lot less. The longer you have the client, a lot less that you might get. But important part is we should never chase money. Sometimes it's very hard, but when we chasing money, so we get desperate of a closing transaction, that comes up on your eye in emotion, and buyer and seller catches that as well. And that's not good because you're putting money first before client. Educate the buyer. 3 purposes. You display knowledge and expertise to your buyer. And if the buyer has more realistic expectation of what could happen. Buyer might be looking for a dream home, but you might tell him to say something right. That's not going to happen. Financial location. You will need to have a responsive to these typical statements. I don't need to be with you first. I'm already know on the houses I want to see. Just meet me at the house. Why do I need to talk to a lender? I know what I can afford. I don't need to talk to a lender. I am cash buyer. How do you answer these questions? To be able to build a trusted relationship, if they are trying to work to find somebody they could trust, they'll be more than happy to meet. I have yet to have a person that says, no, I don't want to meet with you. Talk about things. What do you say? You look at page 41. Is the court now between the and some of the forces? Learning about the buyer. You could ask it, what the buyer needs. You know, how much buyer can afford. It's very important, right? They might have a dream home that they want to buy, or it's the budget, the money they have, they're not going to be able to do that. So it's always good to understand how much they can afford. It's very important. Remember, when you're doing a loan, sometimes you're not being able to get, or a better way to put it is how much buyers are willing to spend money on the house. Because sometimes bank says I could loan you a $1 million, the buyer might be comfortable with just $500,000. We don't know, but we don't need to find that out. So you're not wasting time. When the buyer only owns $500,000 and we keep looking at a $1 million home, it is not going to go anywhere. So you need to know what buyer looking for. And how much they can afford. That is very, 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 very important, in my opinion. Need assessment. Current living situation. They own the house, they need to sell the house, or they're just renting. They're on their lease. Motivation. They're going to buy now, or maybe we'll find out any house. And free. Also, I don't need to buy by certain time. They need to move into the house by a certain time. And also, are they ready to move forward if they find the right house? So, well, I just want to look right now. Maybe I'll buy in 1 year from now. That's what you're making. Will anyone else help you to make a decision? Sometimes it depends on family structure and culture. Not necessarily person who's buying has the decision making, or they need to consult with the elder in the family or somebody else. Even in the United States, sometimes a parent needs to be consulted. Even the kids are buying a house, parents need to be consulted because parents is giving money to the kids to buy some houses. What is a deal breaker? What is important to you? They're going to be very, very important as well. Buyer consultation work session. More in depth. The initial qualifying questions is better. Part of the learning about the buyers, helping them learn about themselves as well, not just about learning about them, but them finding it out. They could learn about themselves as well. And starting page 33, it goes all the way to about 45, 46. Or it's going to be an assessment sheet, a worksheet that you could use. You can be asked by these questions, or you could have them fill it out. However you want to use it, you could do that. This really, really helps you to understand. And also, this becomes a very systematic, meaning that you could ask this question to every buyer. So you have a process when you're doing a consultation to the buyer. Establishing a price parameter, right? How much house can I afford? If the buyer has not been pre-qualified or have not talked to the lender, now is the time to do it before you start going to look for houses. Especially in the United States right now, the houses goes very quickly. A lot of good houses in the medium price range houses get sold in 2 to 3 days when it goes on the market. So the buyer have to be ready. All the financing is in place, so they ready to go. So that's why one of the reasons why, and I always have, but I want to buy it for pre-approval, ready to go before they buy or even really look. So if they found a house that they like, we can make an offer right away. Pre-approval also strengthen the negotiation part. It says, look, we're going to make an offer. It says, here's a pre-approval that they are approved to buy this house, this price of the house already. So it's the closing of the transaction easy. It saves time and energy and stress. Any question?
I think
Go ahead.
I think here in Cambodia, people almost pay cash all the time.
Right.
All the property they pay one shot.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare that they have things like this. Very rare. Maybe I will say here in Cambodia, only 10% of the population. Not even.
Yeah. So as a buyer agent, what are the things you do? You test them. They say they have a cash.
Usually,
In the United States, we ask for the proof.
yeah, but here, I think I trust more than United States. People have cash.
Mm-hmm. I understand, right?
When they're looking for a house and they want to buy, it means that is under budget and they want to buy.
Okay. So each country's process is different.
Yes.
So, how much, and but one big difference is how much they have to pay versus what they want to pay could be different as well, right? That's one thing that you need to find out. They might say, I have $1 million, but if they only want to spend $500,000, that's all you need to know. So a lot of times it's not protecting the buyer, it's protecting you as well, so you're not wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
So think about that as well. For me, as a buyer agent in the United States, I ask for proof of funding before I start working. If they're paying cash, I say, great. So how much house you want to buy? So I will pay $500,000 and I have a cash. And I say the seller will require to have a proof of funding, meaning that you need to prove to the seller that they have $500,000. So it's okay to get a letter from the bank. So you have it, and that makes your offer stronger as well. So the seller doesn't have to wonder if you have my money or not.
I understand.
Always a good practice. It helps you as well.
Works a lot of trust. We trust people.
Yeah.
This is how they work.
I mean, in Asia, definitely we trust a lot more than the Western culture.
Yeah.
But still, it's always good practice. And remember, we're running a business as well. And sometimes trust is important, but certain mechanics are very, very important as well.
It's like you said before, like a different country, different cultures, and they have habits here that we don't do in the States, we don't do in Europe and things like this. So people have a certain way to proceed here, and it's completely different from the United States. I understand you to cover you like we say, you ask. That means as a agent, you need to have proof. You need to be sure you've seen contracts. But there's a lot of difference way here they do.
I understand that.
Most of the people here, what I see is about trust. It's really about trust. And usually people, when they want to buy something, is because they have the money.
Yeah, I understand that. But, you're going to start practice differently when that trust is broken. So, just remember.
Matt, I have a question.
True.
Like usually like in the state, like which step that you have to check the buyer, like the buyer reference for the financial, like before they offer the price or after open house. Because like when they go to open house, I mean, they go you open for public to see the house, but which step that you check the buyer financial? Yes.
No. Open houses, no, it's open to everybody, so anybody could go look. You don't check the financing. They could look the house or not. Remember, we're standing as an agent, working with the buyer. I always ask for financing, regardless if it's a foreign client or even the clients that I've been working with many, many times, and we have a trust relationship. And like I said, Gilbert said, different practice for different countries. But if you really want to remember, protect your business and your client's best interest, it is always to good document everything. Document everything. And as you do with the Cambodia, when you start having many different buyers coming from overseas and so forth, it's always the document is the only thing that's going to protect you. So you want to document everything as well. Okay. Remember, talking about representing your buyer the best way, representing your seller the best way. Open house is different. But like I said, I don't show anybody a house until I have a proof of funding. That's me. And I go to share with you what I do. Right? And culture is different. We don't have to take the way I do it. Says, gee, Cambodia is different. I don't like what Mark is saying. That's okay. But to guarantee you that your day is coming that way. That's quite changing in Japan as well. Japan is an Asia country that they trust. So when you have a lot of foreign buyers coming in and so forth, you need to set the standard. And what happens if you start working with a person that you don't know? So think about that.
Yeah, everything's coming soon in Cambodia, for sure. 100%. About technology, about computerizing, everything.
Everything is coming. The way that you practice real estate up throughout the rest of the world is coming, with bad and ugly. So it's always good to be prepared. 100%. Any other question or comments?
It's me, Mark.
Go ahead.
It's me, Sorn. And I have a question. Just want to make sure that the U.S. after deposit, after the buyer agree to buy the house, they first deposit, and how many steps to pay off the bill?
No, they're just a bit. It's not to pay off the bill. I just need a proof from the bank. Let's say the buyer says, I have a budget of $500,000. That's okay. And I said, can you provide the proof that you have a $500,000 to pay for this house? Because this speed up the process. And this depends on how the escrow and how you do closing. It's not about how many steps you could take to pay. In the United States, you don't make payments. You give earnest money, which is part of the trust money that you give, which is usually about 1% of the purchase price. Then, at closing, usually it's about 1 month later, that you're going to have to come up with whatever the money it is, whether it's a cash, you're borrowing money on a loan, or whatever, have to you. Now, I don't collect any money from my client working for when you establish an initial consultation. And we don't collect any money right now. Even the earnest money right now in the United States, I might get the check, but I usually have an escrow. Escrow it's not a system they don't have in many of the countries. Escrow is a third party, basically as a closing agent. It collects money from both sides and it goes along with the contract and follow the rules on the contract. So sometimes maybe in Cambodia, maybe notary, attorneys, lawyers, or judicial scrivener will do that job. But in the States, most of the places, we still go escrow. Like in New York, where Yoshi's from, they use attorney to write contract, and attorney does the closing instead of escrow company. It's very different. But I don't collect any. I usually right now, I don't touch any money from the client if you're buying a property. And I don't do property management in the United States. Property management is really a separate job. So we, handle money. But I personally, for the last probably 10 years, I have even handled any money from the buyer. They directly write to the escrow to deposit money, by United States, by check, wire, or nowadays we have a app on the phone and so forth to deposit money.
Okay, one more question. If the buyer pay in mortgage, and then how many percent after the buyer pays, and the agency will get the commissions?
Well, these are not get commission. Commission has nothing to do with they're getting mortgage or not. Now, it's nothing to do with they're getting mortgage or not. Commission is based on the purchase price that they do. In U.S., most of the agent does not do loan and the agent. Sometimes we look at as a conflict of interest. Doesn't matter if it's a loan or not. We are pay is based on the percentage of purchase price. Whether they're going to get, let's say they buy $500,000 house, if they're going to get $200,000 on or $400,000, it depends on what kind of loan term they have. And right now in the United States, there's many different type of loan. The buyer depends on what type of loan. Usually, the buyer brings in about 5 to 10% of the purchase price, and the rest of them is handled by loan. But some people do 20% down payment, or 50, just depends. But that does not affect our commission amount.
Okay, thank
Because
you.
we don't handle the loan. Okay? Any other question? Everybody's okay? But establishing a price parameter is very important, right? What price range are they looking for? Regardless of the process is different in Cambodia, you need to know that, right? You need to know what kind of house they're looking for, how much they're willing to pay. And a lot of them, you don't have a lender. The lender will ask these financial questions if they're borrowing money, right? Buyer's credit, however their employment, how much they get paid. Where those usually done by the lender if you're borrowing money in the United States. But most agents do not ask these financial questions. But it could be different countries have a different process. And some countries, real estate agent doesn't know as well. And that's around. But it's all different. So you might have to ask this question. But usually in the United States, lender, meaning the mortgage broker or banker, will ask these questions. So I don't even need to know when the money buyers are buying property in the United States. I don't really need to know how much money they make, where they work. It doesn't make any difference to me. Because the banker will ask that question, and they'll give me a letter saying this. The buyer is able to buy house that's worth $500,000, $600,000, whatever it might be. So I don't really need to know the employment status, how much money they make of the buyer if they're borrowing money. The lender will do that question, our question for it. In the United States. It could be different in Cambodia if borrowing money. But like someone says, most of the time they have a cash to buy. So loan is not part of the process, common practice in Cambodia. Not correct? Most of people buy cash? Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Well, this is a little bit about the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification. Since you don't have that, we'll skip this part. There's a couple of things that you need to understand, and we'll finish it off right here. looking through the buyer's eye. We need to understand if it's a buyer's market or seller's market. What home features are popular? What concerns are buyer having? What website or app are they using? There's a very important to find out where buyer's mind is. So what I'm doing is I'm going to stop right here for the day and we finish for the day. Think about that. And we're going to expand a little bit more about this. So we ended up page 39 right now for the day, and we'll continue on tomorrow. Any question, comments before we finish for the day?
No, thank you. Do you have any exercise or something to give you for tomorrow or anything?
No, not much. But if you want to do it, I hope, we did the SWOT analysis, right? That way you should do it, not just tonight, right? When you're planning your business, what is your strength, weakness? What is the threat that you might have? And things like that. You want to work on, and everybody's different. Some might be big marketing, market information. Somebody might be just because they were competent or whatever it might be. You want to do that as well. Okay? But there's not an official homework, but everything should be homework, because if you're on improve your business, you should practice and understand who you are and what you need to do as a real estate agent.
Mac, a question. Since the pre-qualifying the buyer is quite a standard process, do you have a kind of sample or spreadsheet where you can share to us, like a tick to make sure that the buyer is really a prospect for us? And
so
spreadsheet would be very helpful for us.
In US, like I said, I don't do the pre-qualification or pre-approval with a loan. The lender does.
Yeah, and the bank.
Bank does.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the bank tells you whether they're pre-qualified or not. They usually get a letter. And I could share with you the sample letter. I'll run it for you tomorrow. I have to get a permission for one of my buyers to, I'll erase their name and so what the letter looks like. Okay?
Okay.
Any other question, comments?
No, that's all.
Everybody's good?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for spending the morning with me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll see you same time tomorrow.
Yep.
On night,
Thank you.
Just so you can think, right now, we are 2 o'clock, 10 p.m. in my time here in Seattle.
So, okay.
Have a good day, rest of the day, nice lunch, and for me, it's a good night.